Hey guys, good morning. Day 61. Day 61 of spiritual healthcare, everybody. Hello, good morning. How are you guys doing? It is this crazy day 61. It is pouring rain here, and yeah, it's just pouring rain. We have rain for like the next 2 days apparently. So there it is. Good morning, guys. It is good to see everybody logging in. Hello. Nice to see you guys again this morning. As always, say we're on day 61. Day 61, guys. We're rolling this out. This is awesome. Good morning, Patricia. Good morning, Marge. Good morning, Nigel. Nice to see everyone. It's so cool to see everybody logging in. And I've got such cool information for you guys today. I'm excited about it. Good morning, Will and Carol. Hello. And Will says it's raining in Nebraska as well. Good morning, Lori. How are you? It is good to see everyone. Man, this is like, yeah, it's raining here as well. It's just pouring, which is, we get our little bit of rain, and it's good for Alberta too, because we get a lot of forest fires and stuff like that. So it's good. It can rain for a couple days. It's a good thing. Good morning, Jay. Nice to see you. I love watching all your names pop up. It's so great every morning. And yeah, I've got some cool information for you guys about poltergeist activity and anxiety and stuff like that. This is really, really neat. You guys are going to get such a kick out of this. And also today I want to talk about some of those toxic personalities, toxic people in our experience, and how it influences our anxiety levels and how it can get pushed out as poltergeist activity as well. So it's really interesting today, you guys. It's going to be really good. Good morning, Sally. Sally sent in a really awesome question the other day, and I'm going to grab that too. And it has to do with a haunting, which I was on. Oh my God, it was a long time ago now. It was a long time ago. It's such a good show though. It was on Discovery Channel. I don't know if the new season has been out yet or not. I have no idea. I was in season 4, and it was a blast. I had a great time filming a haunting. It was the one show I did not have to travel for. They sent their directors and whatnot all up to Edmonton, and there was a hotel downtown called the Sands, and they rented out a big conference room, and they set up their whole studio, and they brought in like local help and stuff like that. The director came from California. The production company was in Virginia. It was New Dominion Pictures, and and Steph and I filmed for 2 days. And it was a blast. It was the most grueling interview, I have to say. It was the most grueling interview I have ever done on any show. Ever. It was insane. It was like 9 hours of shooting straight with like one lunch break. And it was like, when you're shooting a show like this, it was like me, and then the director was sitting about maybe 2 feet from me. And it was like, you have all these great big lights on you and stuff like that, and you're getting grilled. You're getting grilled. It's like an interrogation room. But we had a really good time. It was really fun. And, it was great to be able to tell the story. And what I loved about a haunting, and filming it, was being able to work with people that really cared about the accuracy of the story. Before we even shot anything, there was about, I'd say, 3 weeks of phone call interviews, and they would go on for 3 hours a day. They were just, it was every little detail. It was the coolest thing, and we had a great time. So Burton's asking, have I ever watched Paranormal Witness? I've heard mixed things about Paranormal Witness. I've not been on it myself, and I don't know the crew or the producers or anything like that. I've heard mixed reviews. I've had some people that have had really good experiences, and then I've heard other people who their stories kind of got butchered. But I've heard that about like a lot of different paranormal shows. This is, I think, one thing that, speaking of like, toxicity and stuff like that, especially in the workplace, with a lot of TV shows and things like that, I think people don't always understand the legalities and the reliabilities and the sort of, I guess, the surrender in a way that you're giving to some of these productions, when people pass their stories on, and you know, if you've got people that are, you know, in that production team that don't have that sense of integrity of telling the story properly, they'll take your story and they'll just twist it and spin it and turn it into their own thing. So I've been so fortunate because I've worked with so many incredible producers and people who are just you know, they care about what's going on. They care about what they're putting out. So I've been really fortunate that way, but there's been plenty of shows I know where people have complained. A good friend of mine, Dr. Barry Taff, who was the lead investigator on the case for The Entity, for those of you guys who have seen that movie. And he had some crazy experiences with some of the networks over the years, because he's been doing this a lot longer than I have, that's for sure. He's like been in this for like, you know, 50 plus years. And he's had some pretty crazy experiences, and he wrote about them on his blog on barrytaff.net. And yeah, just how devious that this industry can get sometimes in terms of twisting facts and twisting stories, and you know, sort of roping people into saying things that they don't want to, and that kind of stuff. So you really have to be centered and really know your stuff. You know, be willing to stick to the facts and be willing to piss people off in the process with this industry, because otherwise, yeah, they go all crazy. And Nigel's saying it's Thursday, you know, where he is, Paranormal 911. Nigel's in the UK, so yeah, Thursday, Haunted Thursdays. I miss doing Haunted Thursdays on Twitter. We used to have these little Haunted Thursday sessions through the network, Quest Red, and there was myself and the Dead Central blog, Vicky Grant, Haunted Magazine was there, and all of that, and we had such a good time, and it was really fun. When it was the first season of Haunted Hospitals, we did Haunted Thursday, and myself and Richard E. Stepp, we'd go online and we'd chat through the whole episode, except I never knew what was airing. Because I'm in Canada, so I have no idea. And Richard didn't know it was airing either, because he's in Colorado. So both of us were just clueless, and we would just type along and, you know, whatever. So it was funny. But Sally had a really, really great question from yesterday about a haunting. And I get this question so much, so much. And that was basically whatever happened to my roommate. What happened to my roommate? And you know, it's funny because like we completely lost touch. I completely lost touch with him. He went off and, you know, moved out and did his own thing with his boyfriend and whatnot. And they kind of moved out of my experience entirely. So as I don't know, the answer to that question is I don't know. You know, I was still going through a lot of turmoil due to the situation that I was in. So I was kind of focusing on me at that time, and it was just a matter of like self-preservation and moving on. But, you know, looking back, I mean, when you get into a situation where you've got someone who is just not willing to budge on their position about a haunting, or, you know, has been sucked into some sort of like toxic behavior, there's a level at which you have to stop trying to convince. And this is something we're going to talk about today, where, you know, because a lot of people felt like, you know, oh, you know, you should stay and you should, you know, try to convince them and try to make it work and try to, blah, 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 you know, try to get in there and like make this happen. And there comes a point in time where you have to not do that. You have to be able to let that go, and hold your position, hold your knowledge, hold what you know, and stop trying to convince or shift that other person's opinion. Because what ends up happening is that you end up getting sort of dragged into the vibration of the problem, rather than sort of calling them from the problem out, calling them forward. So, and we see this a lot, especially right now, because we've got all of this crazy stuff going on with the pandemic, and lots of other things where, you know, you've got all of these different sides that are trying to convince everyone else, right? Like they're posting memes, they're posting, you know, okay, I've got to convince them of this information or that information. And there comes a point where it's just, it really just isn't helpful anymore. And you have to be able to take a step back from that. And that's something that I learned, you know, during the case that was featured on A Haunting, as well as, you know, throughout my career doing paranormal research, is the fact that you're going to always have the people who either don't believe you, are not willing to move their position, or they're just simply not, they don't want to budge from that. And as soon as you're putting energy into convincing, then, it really does lessen your position as well. So it's not good. Burton says he remembers the Entity movie when he was a kid back in the 80s. Yeah, absolutely. And hi to Gary from Ontario there. That's awesome. Yay, more Canadians. This is good. Always good to hear from, it's good to hear from everybody, but it's neat when there's a few Canadians that pop up every once in a while. So we have to be very careful about trying to convince people who have these different traits, and as they are, moving through their experience, we have to remember that they are attracting evidence of what they are in belief of, right? So when, they're putting that out there, they're getting all this confirmation from the universe that their belief is right, just as we are, right? So, we get all this confirmation as well. We see it really big right now, of course, in focus with the pandemic, because, everybody's having a different experience of it, right down to the people that actually get the virus. I don't know if you guys have noticed this, and this is interesting because I've had quite a few friends now that actually have had COVID. And each one of them has had a different experience of the virus. It's very interesting. Some have had the horrific cough, some have had the cough and the fever, others have been hospitalized, some, have had no symptoms at all. Everybody's having a different experience of it. And, none of them are wrong, right? Like, they've all been diagnosed, they all have the same thing. But it doesn't mean that one is right and one is wrong. Everybody's just having a different experience. And I think, and I think it's so indicative of how we attract into our experience as well, where, you can have a certain experience with certain people, and then another person have a completely different take or experience of the same situation. So as soon as we sort of start to step into having to pull people in to what it is that we're trying to convince them of, whether it be evidence or whether it be, a paranormal incident, or just, your own opinion, please believe me. A lot of people, especially with this, and with these situations right now, are really struggling with the idea of, nobody is believing me. So therefore I have to put my weight into your opinion, and start to convince you. And we have to stop doing that. Not only is it really useless at the end of the day, because really when you play out that situation, okay, then they believe you get that external validation maybe for a little bit, but ultimately it's just a tiny little fix. It's just a tiny fix. And sometimes what we have to do is begin to internalize and look inside of who we are and where we're sitting, and start to ask ourselves why we need them to validate our experience. We don't need other people to validate our experience. You had an experience, and that's enough. That is enough. It's always important to be able to take in other people's points of view, other people's, advice or opinions or, takes on the situation. If you've got people in your experience that are, healthy and positive people, but, we have to be very, very careful about not allowing them to invalidate, what we have experienced. So as soon as we have somebody saying, I disagree with how you're feeling, that doesn't work. That doesn't work. And you can't do that either. So, if somebody's coming to you and explaining, as an investigator, for instance, right? If I've got somebody coming to me and telling me, I felt this way as I had this experience, I might have a different take on what their experience was, but you can't invalidate their feelings about what had happened, because those are their feelings. That was their experience. So usually how I coach my clients in this is I encourage them when they're speaking about their paranormal experience to people, including to whether it be to producers or whether it be to investigators or family or anything like that, is to start off with, my experience was. So that when someone turns around and says, well, I don't believe you, you say, no, I didn't ask you to believe me. I just I just told you this was my experience. And the same philosophy works when you're talking sometimes to people who either have hurt you or were offensive. Maybe they didn't even mean to be, but starting it off with, my experience of this was. My experience of you is. This is what my experience is. So you're not shaming them. You're not putting them down. You're not coming at them with that negative energy. All you're doing is explaining your experience, and it's very, very different. it's once you kind of can tune into this and start to understand that there's a difference between your experience versus the thing that happened, maybe even the facts that happened, and to be able to separate that a little bit, you can start to plug in a new way to what exactly has happened and what's been going on. It's really tricky to not intertwine those things. So the reason why I'm bringing this up is because there is a new article that has come out from Spain, of all places. The Spanish researchers, the Spanish Society of Parapsychology, has come up with some very interesting findings and very interesting information about poltergeists. So Dr. Manuel Barroco, who is a very well-known parapsychologist there, he has noticed there's been, of course, this increase in complaints about haunted places and paranormal activity in homes and things like that. And we've talked a little bit about this on Spiritual Health Care, that our emotional states and whatnot will influence, of course, all of the things that are going on around us. But they also, this quarantine has also, of course, brought us home and brought us back in tune and in touch and allowed us to be still in a way that we haven't experienced. But the Spanish researchers took it to this new level. And what they've realized is that a lot of the poltergeist phenomenon that's been going on they think has been caused by an uncontrolled epilepsy of the temporal lobe that is actually being produced by anxiety. So here we've got this great example, right, of paranormal phenomenon being influenced by our emotions and what we're doing and thinking. And this, we know that the quarantine, of course, has really changed a lot of people's lives. And instead of course, this epilepsy acting on the organism itself, which is us, right? What's happening seems to be that epilepsy is acting outwards. So we end up getting this kind of burst of poltergeist activity. And what's really interesting about this is that it usually affects elements that have some sort of metallic component. So the things that are being moved, they're finding usually have some sort of metallic quality, like porcelain or the mechanisms of a blind or something like that, something that's got metal in it. So it's really, really, really interesting how it seems to be affecting things with like electromagnetics, or that it's conducive to an electromagnetic current. So this is really interesting information that's coming out. And as we're kind of moving through this quarantine, we're noticing things, even like changes in our animals. We're noticing all sorts of just really fascinating things. My snake discovered tape the other day, which was absolutely hysterical. He discovered tape, so that's a whole nother story. But this is really fascinating, and I think the more that we are beginning to understand what it is that is creating our world, creating our environment, and the role that our minds really do have to play in the things that are happening around us, the more we can start to get a handle on this. So the process that I wanted to give you guys today was to be able to take note of how you're feeling if you're experiencing some of this activity, stuff moving around, things appearing and disappearing or reappearing in places, is taking a bead on how you're feeling. Keep a journal, keep a diary, write it down when this stuff happens. Take a bead on how you're feeling, because this anxiety that people are experiencing due to the quarantine and COVID and all of those things, it really is playing a big role in these cases. So the Spanish researchers, they've been researching this for about 30 years. And the first 200, they recorded about 200 cases. And within those 200 cases, and it started in about the 1970s, they managed to find that this was a factor, this emotional side of things was a factor in every single one of them. It's a really big deal. And people who were experiencing abuse, people that were experiencing all of these different traumatic events, and had this kind of toxic element to their experience, where it all factored in. So I wanted to offer that to you guys today because I think it's really fascinating. I'm going to post the article on Entity Seeker on the Entity Seeker Facebook page so you guys can find it and read it, because I think it is something we have to start paying attention to. All of these all of these things that we, I think, need to be able to understand and take ownership of. I'm such a big enthusiast about, before we start to look for that outside explanation, to begin to turn inwards and understand that there is stuff that's going on within us that is really playing a role in areas of our life that we don't even realize. And here now we've got, this research that's coming out that's showing us just how much we're influencing it. We've talked before on the show about the double slit experiment, and how the observer in the double slit experiment will change the outcome of the experiment. Light photons will move from, waves to particles, depending on that person's expectation and how they observe it. And, I think it's just such a small, it's just a small factor of what our minds, what our perception really does allow us and to be capable of and to observe, right? So all of this thing. So now that they know that there are this sort of epileptic cause, and this was discussed before at UCLA as well, in Dr. Barry Taft's lab, and at the time it wasn't given a whole lot of credence because they thought, maybe it's not a thing. They couldn't finish the experiments out because, there was some ethics problems and all sorts of things. And then the lab just got closed, just no funding. So it's neat to see that this is coming back and that this idea might be playing a big role here. But anxiety and managing our anxiety is really, really important. Acknowledging that you've got it is part of this, right? So I wanted to read a little bit for you guys today from the amazing Miss Ayanla Van Zandt from Faith in the Valley, her book. And because one of the things that she talks about that I think is so important to acknowledge as we move forward is the factor of courage. It takes courage to be able to do this work. And, all of us here, all of us that come to spiritual health care every day, that push through, that are willing to be brave and to be vulnerable enough to look at ourselves, this is the fundamentals of what courage really is. It's being able to sit and own and speak your truth. Speak your truth and be able to take a look at ourselves, when there is no job to go to and no label to put on us. We get to take those labels off for a while and just be in the space and think about it. And courage, that's what courage is. So I wanted to read this little bit to you guys, because I think you'll find it really, really interesting. Courage not only means being able to do something new, it also means taking steps to be someone new. Some of us talk a great deal because we are afraid we won't be heard. Others never say anything in fear of saying the wrong thing. Some of us are overreactive and hyperactive because we fear missing out. There are those of us who are withdrawn, lethargic, inactive, and in fear of messing up. One of the first steps in developing a courageous outlook and approach to life is being able to look at ourselves, our beliefs, attitudes, and patterns. Courage enables us to examine. Examination enables us to choose. Courage is more than forceful, aggressive, bold outward action. It is the most infinite level. Courage is an in-depth, inward examination which leads to alteration and application of a new way to be. And I think this is so accurate and so true. Good morning, Amanda. Amanda just got here. She's from the UK. It's so cool. Thank you for coming. Thank you. So we have to begin to understand and acknowledge the fact that this work takes courage. And really, you guys are just, you are so full of that. You're so full of that bravery and that courage to be able to be here and come here and take a hard look with everybody else, because we are all supporting you guys. We are all we support each other, and we move through this work day to day, and we are going to come out on the other side of this in a brand new experience. We really are. And no matter what it looks like, we're going to be able to take this and move forward, because we're going to know who we are. We're going to know who we are. And I think that's so important. So the to-do that I want to give you guys today, is really awesome. I think you guys are going to love it. On YouTube right now, the incredible Abraham Hicks and Esther Hicks is doing a live broadcast regularly called Abraham Now. And it's amazing. It's like an hour and a half. There's like 40 of these. They're incredible. I'm going to post them on the Entity Seeker Facebook page for you. I'll post one and then you guys can find the rest. But they are really cool, and you can subscribe to the whole thing for like there's some sort of like fee or donation or something. You can subscribe to the whole thing, but they're on YouTube as well, right? For free, and they're really amazing, and they're so uplifting. They're so uplifting, as they always are. You'll always come out feeling incredible afterwards, because I just absolutely love them. That's where some of our affirmations every day have come from. Is the amazing Esther Hicks. So I'm going to post those for you guys so you can check it out. They are just, it's amazing and lovely. And I love the fact, as I say, that we can do this every single day, and whatnot, though I will be taking a few days off here and there, because so I can like get more material together and work on the masterclass and stuff like that. So we'll be doing that. But anyway, we have got some affirmations to do, ladies and gentlemen. So everybody take a breath. It is natural for my body to be well. Even if I don't know what to do in order to get better, my body does. I have trillions of cells with individual consciousness, and they are learning how to achieve individual balance. When this condition began, I didn't know what I know now. I don't need to understand the cause of this illness. I only have to gently, eventually release this illness. It doesn't matter how it got started, because it's reversing its course right now. And there's no hurry about any of this. My body knows what to do. Well-being is natural to me. My inner being is intricately aware of my physical body. My cells are asking for what they need in order to thrive, and Source is answering those requests. I'm in very good hands. My only work is to relax and breathe, and I can do that easily. And everybody take a breath. Thank you all for an amazing day 61 of spiritual healthcare. I love this so much, and it's so wonderful to be able to do this with you guys every day live. I of course am going to be putting this up with the rest of the YouTube videos. With here we've got spiritual healthcare day 61, and all of them are archived now. And Serena saying, is this just me, or is it a beautifully gloomy day here? Yeah, it is. It really is. It's it's beautiful, and I love it. And the rain is amazing, and it smells so good. And there's a theory. It's funny. There's a theory about why we love the smell of rain. And I heard this morning, and I thought this was interesting. They wonder if it actually was a sense developed in order for us to become more adept at finding water way back in the day. I thought that was really interesting. So who knows? It might be. It makes sense, doesn't it? Yeah, it's like we're sensitive to that smell, and it smells good, so we go look for it. So anyway, have an amazing day, you guys. Have an amazing day. And remember, if you've got poltergeist and weird stuff going on in your house, pay attention. Pay attention to how you're feeling when it happens, and see if there's a correlation. It's lots of fun. So I will see you guys tomorrow morning. Tomorrow morning, spiritual healthcare, 10 a.m. Mountain Time, right here. So, bye everybody.